Amy Garelick, founder and CEO of Power Up, found her passion for video storytelling at an early age. Amy spent 15 years in the magical world of Disney media and special event production, using her passion for storytelling to communicate and connect. Whether creating content in support of a nonprofit event or producing a small business video introduction, she provides the creative direction for Power Up's the wonderful world of video storytelling and virtual event production. Please help me welcome Amy Garelick.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Raymond, Angie, and of course, Ebony, who knew me during the wonderful world of my time at Disney and has continued to bring me into the fold. So thank you for letting me share a passion of mine, which is the wonderful world of virtual and hybrid events. So today we're going to discuss meetings of the future, how to show up and show out. I feel like that tagline needs a snap, so I'm giving it a snap. We're going to go from there. And yes, I am founder and CEO of Power Up, and now we are Power Up Video Studios. We're actually opening a physical space at the beginning of May. So just to go into what we're going to do today, we are going to answer the following questions, or at least confuse you enough to maybe still be asking these questions. How can I make others feel at home in the virtual and or hybrid meeting space? We're going to answer the question, how can I enhance my impact and presence in a virtual or hybrid meeting? And how has the power of video forever changed virtual and hybrid events? So to start out, as mentioned, I come from a strong background in storytelling from my boss there, or former boss, Mickey Mouse, and time with VCU within the School of the Arts and Fashion and special event production. Power Up is a video production company, but in March of 2020, when the world was going to heck in a handbasket, as we say, we pivoted a strong right to the virtual event production space. With my event background and my desire to be on the cusp of all of the toys and technology, it was a perfect fit to be able to save many events at that time. So from March 20th till we just did a virtual event last week, we have been producing virtual events in over 8 countries, with over 250 pieces of video content to support that for nonprofit associations, special events, on-demand content, you name it. It started out as a crutch and a need and a save, and then it became a strategy and a pillar to what we do here at Power Up. So why should you worry about virtual? They just took the masks off the planes. We're all trying to return to normal. We're doing all the things. I don't have to detail all of that out. We're all trying to be good humans and do all the good things. Can we say goodbye to virtual? Well, we're sitting here today on a go-to meeting, so I'm going to say no. I believe that what the world has been able to do with what was a crutch and what was a save and what was us attempting to continue to connect as humans is now a strategic resource. And the word hybrid is used to bring both the in-person and the virtual together. And if you think about the limitations of a conference room, a meeting space, the fact that I'm sitting in Hopewell, Virginia, and you're in the city of Hampton Roads, I mean, it gives you an opportunity to scale like no one has ever really given before. We weren't giving ourselves that opportunity because it felt like it was the impersonal, disconnected version of meetings. And now we can be anywhere in the world, literally. We filmed in Tel Aviv, Australia, North Carolina, like, anywhere in the world. Lower costs. It didn't cost much more than the gas I was going to take to get here and my tea to attend. We are together. Though we do want to always support the hospitality industry, virtual and hybrid pieces allow you to scale in ways that you never imagined before or were never really being accepted before. So that's why we want to continue to talk about this as a strategic resource and how to best use it. One other aspect of benefit is environmental. As we all look to better the lives and the buildings and the world that we live in, not adding to the footprint of that which messes with the environment. Sorry, hopefully this will start working. That helps us with being able to just plug in and use resources at our disposal versus adding more to that footprint. So how can you make others feel at home? I think that the biggest disconnect people had with virtual and bringing virtual into an in-person or a hybrid circumstances, you know, they're just looking in, they're just watching the live stream. So it is our job, no matter what type of participation that person chooses to take, whether they're there in person or whether they dial in, that you should be planning to make a meaningful experience for them. You don't want it just to be, hi, come and watch the great party we're going to be having in this room. You need to think differently. So we're going to talk a little bit about that critical shift in meeting preparation, because that does have to happen. And unfortunately for many, it's like, oh, that sounds like work. I don't want to do that. Well, that's your choice, of course. But to do this in a way where people feel like they are able to truly jump in and be a part of things, you do have to think about the virtual space from the start. So it starts with the agenda. Your event agenda needs to change. 2 years ago, when I was saving events, we were converting in-person events to the digital space. Now you need to sit down and think about creating a virtual experience that complements your in-person experience. Don't convert, create. As we all are well aware, it's not fun to sit in one space and stare at a camera all day. So keeping things short and very simple is really how you make people feel very comfortable. You don't want people to feel like they need to learn a new technology from start to finish, or you know, be on 12 screens to activate what may be going on in person. So keeping things very simple is the best way for people to feel at home. Keeping things short is good because it's even better for the in-person. People really don't want to sit all day like they used to. So being able to create micro content or opportunities for engagement, which we'll talk about in a second, allows for that pace to also welcome your virtual world. It is not about the technology. Just because you bought it doesn't mean it's going to make it better. It is not about having the biggest, the best, the this, the that. It's about thinking about your audience and about what their capacity is. Sometimes we have encountered events that have more technology than their audience would ever be able to understand or deal with, and it's not going to connect. They're not going to be able to figure this new platform out with these digital, it looked like Tron or Hello Kitty. It's like digital tables and all this different stuff that they had to engage with to just be in front of another person for networking. The average person is going to say no thank you. So it is not necessarily about the technology. It's about knowing your audience and about creating opportunities for engagement, simple and abbreviated manners. And truly, what all of this is about is community and connection. You focus on your audience, focus on the engagement that they can bring to an event of any sort. Give them a voice. I actually was getting ready to pull up, and I just have the chat. I would love everyone to do the same and light up the chat throughout this presentation. Whether you're talking to each other, passing notes in class is allowed now, guys. You know, be human. You're able to engage on levels that you've never really been able to engage before. Usually it's, you know, oh, well, they're over there talking by the coffee. Maybe I'll go over and say hi. No, everyone's on an even playing ground. Give them the space and the energy to network and connect and enjoy. Focus on your audience. Again, if I see your faces and I see your level of engagement, I can speak to you. Now, have I sat on a presentation working? Absolutely. I hope they understood it was not out of disrespect that I wasn't sitting here, you know, ready, set to listen. But everyone in here has spoken to a group, I'm pretty sure. You know, being able to focus on your audience, make sure that you allow them the space to engage, to unmute if that's appropriate, and to really be a part of it. Part of that is, again, technology, but the most simple technology can be used to make that happen in a hybrid environment. It's a matter of a speaker. And by that, I mean like an AV speaker, being able to hear the people and they hear you. Gamification. Has anyone, by show of hands, has anyone ever played a game within a virtual environment in the last 2 years? Tom has. Thank you, Tom. So it could be something as simple as a poll, and they assumed that, type of engagement was a game. It could be, I mean, I've done scavenger hunts where we have been running through houses and laptops moving through rooms just because it was a break. You would be surprised, and I think I learned this very early on working for Disney, you would be surprised if you present a game to a group of adults who don't normally play and then set an opportunity for competition, it becomes quite a throwdown. So consider the thought, you really need to make it fun. You need to think about how to truly engage with them and maybe get them a little bit out of their comfort zone. So community and connection. One other part to community is to give them a space to be communal, whether it is a Facebook group before your event or an opportunity to talk before the event starts, even if you give them space in breakout rooms. Let them be the humans they want to be. Let them connect. Let them have the space. Give them the community moments so that they can get, I say hype, and I will overuse that word, but they will get hype on the event before the event even begins, because they're going to see the time that you've given them and the space that you've given them to engage and connect. So how can you enhance your presence when you are virtual or hybrid? As a participant, I recommend always using speaker view. Turn your own camera on and stay focused, but let your focus be on the speaker. I have been on many an event as a organizer, as a backstage manager, and you will be pleasantly surprised as to the amount of things going on where people have chosen to have their camera on. So again, I said that was the rule, have your camera on, but you want to be focused. We have seen people packing offices. We have seen people changing clothes. We have seen people making dinner. Sometimes it's a distraction. I say for you, if, again, be as focused as you can be during the meeting. You want the meeting to be effective, and that's truly the way to be present. Obviously, with things going on, it's great that people show up and yet they're still working. That's not a big deal. Just don't be more distracting than the presenter. I was going to show a picture, but I've chosen not to because it wasn't on this computer. But at some point, I'll have to show a woman, very distinguished woman within the military in Maryland, was a part of a veterans event, and she turns her camera on, and I guess her mic was on, so therefore they thought she was a speaker for that hot second. You know how these systems do. She had a Wonder Woman mannequin beside her and an ET thing, like ET the alien, on her desk. There was nothing anyone could do to take attention back because everybody's going, what is going on in there? So again, think about your background. I've truly seen it all. I'm not even sharing the level of things I've seen. Truly think about your background. Think about where your camera is placed. Having a camera at eye level or above is very important. I'm looking down now because I'm looking at my notes, but you want to engage and look into the camera as many times as you can, because that's where everybody is seeing you. That's where you're really connecting with your audience. Open up the chat. Use the reactions if they exist. Be active. These resources are here and it is okay to use them. So as a participant, again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. We've done this for almost 2.5 years, but it is important to every once in a while go back to the basics and think about how you can best produce your version of active participation with the way that you show up on the camera. As a speaker, use gallery view. You want to see all the faces. You want to see the people who are doing whatever they do. If someone laughs, if someone raises their hand because it's easier to raise your physical hand than your digital hand, you want to be able to engage in that manner. Pick up clues when they're talking, the facial expressions, the tone of voice. Normally, I have my team with me. They're out preparing for our shoot today, but it's good to have a co-host or a co-moderator. One, it's nice to have a sip of tea or a breath in between statements, and you can counter and back and forth with people. But then also, if there are questions in the chat, someone can be answering, and that is, again, higher value opportunities to be able to continue to produce as much value as you can for the virtual audience. In a hybrid circumstance, your speaker has to remember that they are speaking to two different sets of eye lines. You've got your in-person and you have your virtual audience. As a speaker, you need to identify, you need to call out and recognize your virtual audience. Hopefully your AV team has set up an opportunity for you to see the audience so that you can absolutely say, Angie, I see that you agree, and then go to the in-person audience. And we do teach that dynamic to our speakers that we work with in hybrid circumstances because it matters. You don't want them to think they just joined a live stream. Again, light up the chat, give them the resources they need, make sure that the links are linkable. It's not just something that they would have to then copy and paste. Teaching the folks how to save the chat in whatever platform, so maybe they do keep all those great virtual business cards and networking circumstances. You want to, as a speaker, as a presenter, as the organizer side, absolutely use all the resources that are available that feel like the most transparently user-friendly ones, like answering a poll question, putting up an infographic during breaks, showing a video. My one takeaway, if you take nothing else away from the experience that we have here today, is as a speaker, I beg of you to not narrate your chaos. It was a phrase that I coined and has been stolen recently, and I love that it's being stolen. It's the, well, let me do this. Let me get the chat open. Can anyone see this? Can anyone see that? Everybody knows what you're doing. Everybody knows you're getting ready to share. Everybody knows. So my thought is the way that we're going to tighten this up as we move forward is to restrict the amount of narration of, I say chaos, but that was because the version of what was happening when I said that was truly chaos. Nobody needs to hear it. So I think that if you think about the quiet that can come from quiet transitions, and we all know you're sharing the screen, and trust me, they will light up the chat if they cannot hear you. Those types of things, I think, will be our leveling up as a world in this space. Okay, so you've seen that woman get ready 45,000 more times than you wanted to. Let's move to the next one. Online and hybrid meetings are not about technology. They are about skill and careful planning. So that being said, there are some traditional things that were on your agenda that should be kept and should be translated into the virtual space. I believe in necessary disruptions. So not the narration of chaos as you're putting a share screen up, but necessary disruptions. Exercise breaks, surprise guests, opportunities to network are just 3 examples. You need to break them up. If this were something where we were together, I would find ways to have you guys move in small groups, talk about experience, and we would make this way more interactive, and that should be the way you translate it into the virtual space. With our smaller group here today, I want to make sure we're all just moving along for a Q&A, but you want to spice it up. Now, the best way to do that is to have a buddy with you that can assist on the tech side while you're going through and doing all the FaceTime part of it. But give people an opportunity to move, to breathe, to engage. All of this that we're talking about is important to think about in regards to the design of an event. Many people are like, great, I'm only going to do this if it's worth it. You know, am I going to go through all these, jumping through these fire hoops to have a couple of people on virtual when I, really know how to do the in-person stuff very well? Well, one, if you do it right, you will scale and you will have the audience that wasn't going to make the time to be there in person or can't make the time to be there in person. But at the end of the day, attendance is not your data point. Engagement is the data point. How many people are actively participating when asked? You have to measure success with meaningful data. So you create the opportunities for people to engage, and they do. You find ways for them to network, to share their information, and they do. They were actively participating. That's really where you go with something like this, is that it was of value. Otherwise, it's a webinar. And there's nothing wrong with webinars. It's just that's an on-demand product. That's not an event. So how has video, which is my world, changed hybrid and virtual events forever and ever? Well, I would imagine the average roundtable experience would be in a room with the round table and coffee, and you would be able to be there together, and there'd be some light networking, conversation, Q&A, all that great stuff. Well, we now have a recording of this content. You probably have not recorded ones maybe in 2019 or 2018 or before. Now this has legs. This has the opportunity to be marketed as a benefit of participation within this world. Video assists in so many ways in the marketing of your event. So let's take a step back. Even before the event exists, using video to have your speakers create promotional videos. It could be 30 seconds with your phone. We're all journalists now, and they just talk about what they're going to speak to and invite everyone to be there. It's going to be more friendly to the algorithms of all your social media channels. It's something quick and easy. If you have a speaker that enjoys speaking and does this on the regular, they just like to hear themselves talk anyway. So it's one more opportunity for their FaceTime. So it's all good stuff. Send registered guests pre-event hype video. Again, I'm going to overuse that hype word. I warned you. But if it's a matter of, there's an in-person, well, I have a wonderful amount of experience working with Coliseum Central's events for annual meeting as an example. If we were to do a video from someone within the board who formally invites and reminds that it's 2 weeks away, or there's other pieces of video content that you could send out in regards to the keynote and some of the value that you would receive from the points that we believe she's going to present. There's opportunities to be more human in the process. So that's where we go with that thought. Video can also assist in branding and sponsorships. I mean, from the moment you walk into a conference, branding sponsorships should be like the one core first impression message when you're in person. That should not change when you're in a virtual or hybrid space. So videos can be branded. You can have lower thirds where people's names are at the bottom. Sponsorships can include commercial content. It's a broadcast, if you think of it that way, where maybe they're all switching rooms to go to breakouts. You have a good 5 minutes for sponsorship content. So video absolutely enhances your in-person and your hybrid. Now those pieces of content can be showed on main screens at other times versus everything just being in moment. Then the aftermath, which is what I started out with when we started talking, was the on-demand or replay piece to this content. You didn't have that in the past. Now you have this piece of content that can be played, can be distributed, can be pieced and parted. We work a ton with our nonprofits and our associations to create content that they can send out.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Suri really wanted to be a part of this, so forgive me. Actually, she just likes to hear me talk. We work with our nonprofits and our fundraisers so that, there was an attendance at the fundraisers that we had in person or virtual, and now they can send those videos out. They can put them on social media to continue to build awareness. There are certifications where there are different associations that normally you'd go away for a weekend and take all of the hours of training that you need to be what you need to be. Well, now we can create an on-demand website with all the content and all the behind-the-scenes stuff that makes sure they're doing what they say they do. All of this in video can be very effective to help us continue to be flexible, continue to be accommodating, and continue to scale. So the future of events truly is about building connection, knowing your audience and what motivates them, designing events with clear goals and objectives, and really taking the time to reimagine your events. We're really good at the in-person stuff. Now we just need to think about how to extend our world just a little bit so that we can scale, we can build opportunity to connect in ways that may not have been in the past, and we can utilize the content well beyond the time that you originally met. I love the notes in the chat with the takeaways. Thank you so much. That makes me so happy. I welcome any questions, comments, concerns, opinions on the gifts I chose. Like I'm up for any of it. And feel free to unmute yourself and we can have just a nice little roundtable conversation.
Amy, that was awesome. I couldn't even keep up with the takeaways, but that was a good.
I know, I talk really fast. I'm sorry.
A good suggestion, because like you said, you are enjoying it. Sometimes you're so busy trying to take notes, but then the presenter doesn't know doesn't really have any feedback to kind of gauge the audience. So that's something I'll try to make sure that I do more often. But God, there were so many takeaways. I can't wait to get the PowerPoint so I can go back through it again. It's sparked a lot of ideas.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to narrate my chaos.
Amy, how would you suggest, from the presenter's point of view, when we're now doing hybrid meetings for all our committees? This roundtable is the only one we haven't done any with yet. But as you're presenting, you said something about having multiple people speaking, so it's just not a webinar, so it looks like a webinar. How do you engage to participate in committee meetings? So sometimes, you speak and and it's just crickets and, in that dead silence. You want someone to do you just call on people or?
Yes. So I think that the digital crickets can be handled in a variety of ways, depending upon your comfort level with the audience. Identifying people by name from the start of your presentation so that they're hearing their names, they're hearing that you're calling their names, and it may just be like I said, oh, Angie agrees. Angie's like, oh, gotta wake up. It could be that you are posing questions in the chat that you want to have answers, and then you ask for additional, Ms. Love, you said this. I'd love for you to give us a little bit more detail. So there are a couple of different strategic facilitation type approaches to that. As far as the true silence of digital, I mean, we've all been there. We've been there in person where everybody's just staring at you and you're like, really? We're all adults. Come on, somebody give me a question. Sometimes you got to stack the deck. And I think that that's also something that I have done is, well, in a circumstance like this, many people have asked me, what do you think about that, Ebony? And then try to encourage. Sometimes they're just stick in the mud. So I can't, you can't fix everything, but you can certainly use some of those types of techniques, which work well in person, especially when you can stare someone down. Other things that you can default to would be to have something along the lines of something they can download or an infographic up on the screen where maybe it's to transition into a Q&A and say, we're going to take 3 questions. So maybe it hones it in a little bit. Somebody can say, I've really got one. And I don't know. I think that it's that embarrassment of who goes first. And the more that you can do to facilitate the comfort around that, the better.
One of the other things I liked what you said and I thought about how we can incorporate it, but is just a group time, because in-person meetings, like yesterday, we had our security committee meeting for the first time in person in 2 years. And after the meeting was over, everybody was still there for another 5 to 10 minutes. Whereas when we do it virtually, thank you for seeing. So maybe what we could do is leave the camera on, get rid of the slide or the presentation and just start, okay, and we're just going to chat. And those that want to stay on can communicate with each other, because there was a lot of good discussion after the meeting yesterday.
Yeah, it's making the space. I think I know, because I was a victim of this. We would do a 9 to 10 o'clock meeting, a 10 to 11 o'clock meeting, because all we had to do was switch the Zoom room.
Right.
And you would never set up your calendar like that 2-3 years ago. I mean, it takes time to get where you're going. That somebody's going to catch you on the way out, or that you want to get there early for placement. I've got to sit next to her. I've been meaning to talk to her. We are missing some of that. So our job is to make the space and to make it okay, and to give them the idea that there are platforms that we have been using for that specifically. We did a fundraising event out of Seattle, I think it was last week, and there were tables. And it was another one of those platforms where they, you had to punch this, do that. It was a little overly techy, so that's why I always say tap the brakes when you can. But we as a team could leave that room open for an undetermined amount of time. Like, it could stay open. I went back at noon our time, and there were still people at the tables talking, and that made me so happy. Like, because you could see their little icons were still sitting at the table. The equivalent of that, if you are on a Zoom, I'm not sure about the breakout capabilities within this platform specifically, is to have someone that just keeps an eye on it and gives them a space where it's not main room, but they can go and have conversations in fours or fives or twos in other rooms, and give them an extra hour. It's not the norm yet, but we need to make that space that we would have taken to get in the car, run to get a coffee, and head to the next one, and or whatever we need. We need to bring that space back. We've got to bring that space back, and that's where those moments, those beautiful meet cutes happen, and all the networking and all of that. So I think it's a matter of just giving that space, making that space.
And Ebony probably knows this, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm ignorant on these. But how do you create those breakout rooms?
So within the Zoom platform, there are specific ways that you can do that as host or co-host. And Raymond, if that's something you want to walk through, I would be more than happy to get you on a Zoom and walk you through it. My team will do anything for you guys. So, but yeah, I think it's just, well, one, when in doubt, go to YouTube. Two, I'd be more than happy to jump on a Zoom and teach anyone how to create those. And it is simpler than you think. So I'll keep my answer short.
I have a question for you. And you said it's not about technology, and I get that. But in education, if you are in a hybrid class, the screen is split up into multiple views. One of the presenter, two of the slide deck or chalkboard, and three to give an overall appearance of belonging. And sometimes an actual document, if he's referencing it, if that is being referenced. None of that exists in the GoToMeeting, Zoom, or those worlds. That's an Adobe function. That's what, well, they pioneered it. Why doesn't that exist? I mean, when I think about a live situation and being a presenter to a hybrid audience, I would want everyone to have the ease of viewership or ease of what is going on.
Absolutely. Well, one, I would love to go up to Zoom together and pitch the technology, and then we can go buy our private island with the with the results, because they should be. I will say that when someone needs those levels of connectivity, we find sort of scrappy ways to accommodate with multiple logins and other live stream assisted systems. For the most part, that's something we take off of the plate of our presenters, and we're doing all of that magic in the background. I agree with your thoughts completely, and I think there should always be a way to try to match what the experience is in person, but it's about the delivery and to not have them be nose down in those details versus really focusing on the presentation. So is that something that could be delivered in advance, delivered through an email that they know, then they can have it up on a second screen or print it out? Is it something where the presenter is very important? It is important to see faces. Do you start to direct this where you do have it, the screen's up, then the screen's down, and you have someone helping you direct it, camera A, camera B, So I think it's about figuring out the dynamic of what you are producing. You're producing a broadcast. What do you need to do to make sure that the technology is not what they're paying attention to? Because you've accommodated in advance, since you can't just hand it out, or you want to have your face seen. What can you do to really make that happen? I'm going to say, we love what we do in backstage management. We think we do a great job of it. We have all the toys to do that so that you don't have to think about that. I would also say that my 17-year-old and 14-year-old do an excellent job at this in their gaming streaming platforms. So even if it's a matter of identifying someone that can help as co-host in moment to give you that dynamic, it makes all the difference. Yeah, you'd be amazed what these kids can do with those streaming platform resources.
That is the truth.
So, Amy, we are, as Raymond mentioned, kind of going through this reset, refresh, palette cleanse, or whatever you want to call it, where we're transitioning to hybrid meetings from just being completely virtual for the past 2 years. And this is right on time because it's something that I have been thinking about. What would be your recommendations as to how to make the reset and creating of new norms fun for those that will continue to come in a virtual sense? And so by that I mean, we have all been in meetings where the cameras are off. We have all turned our cameras off. Well,
Sure.
now we're coming back in person, and we actually, in our conference room, will have a second television set up just for the participants, which I love technology. And at first I was like, well, maybe that's overkill and I'm doing it because I love technology. But now hearing your presentation, it'll be perfect because we'll be able to watch what's happening.
Yes, yes.
Additional questions. What I don't want, though, is 9 black Brady Bunch squares where all you see is a name. But after 2 years, even when we, staff has always had cameras on, we had started the habit of polling and doing different things to pull people in. But the reality is, like you said, people have a lot of different things going on. People have reasons for having their cameras off. So how do we make it fun and set a new expectation after this time?
So the one thing that I have done with, and this was experimented upon in 2021 when a 212 meeting decided to go hybrid, and it's very much you're showing up to pitch yourself. It's one of those 30-second, 60-second network moments. So the idea that I had 6 or 7 cameras off just killed me because I'm like, why even show up? Goodness, they don't know who you are. I would identify a host specifically for your virtual audience, and that person is there for them. So even though you're going to have blended moments, when your virtual audience jumps in, it's, oh my gosh, hi Sandy, how are you? And again, you may not be connected to the in-person yet, but you are giving them your undivided attention. You're setting expectations. We'd love to see cameras on. This is what it's going to look like. So I don't know. I think it's like being a good hostess and not making it easy for them to just log in and not participate. Because I think that's really where we are now is having to make it a little uncomfortable again to find out what our new vibe is going to be. So I think step 1 would be there for them, have a host specifically for them and start training them. Because there are many events that I have logged into that, yes, even as a producer, I'm camera off because I am doing other things, but this is what, it's like I get to have a podcast while I'm working,
Right. Right. But it is so hard, and it has been hard the past 2 years. I mean, I admittedly love virtual meetings, but it has been hard as the person running the meeting to not have any kind of feedback, to not know, are they listening? Do they understand it? Because there are so many cues, and my fear now that we are going back to in person, I don't have the fear of like, oh, those people just be left hanging. I have just the fear that they will be disconnected themselves. Do you know what I mean? Because you're going to be in a room with people.
So being a good host or hostess would be the first thing. I also think some of the pre-work in the messaging, it might be that you record yourselves get a little fun, have a little fun with it. We are excited to have you here. We're testing our equipment, figured we'd share this test with you. Raymond, we need the camera on. I want to see your face. You could do some fun stuff with that. Get the attention. Again, I think it's about setting expectations. There are
like
many
the Soaring video in Epcot where they teach us how to buckle our seatbelt.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to do it. Thank you. I wanted to do it without being like a dragon person, and I was trying to think of fun ways too of like how
it's a fine line. It's a fine line, and it might be that the buddy system is also something. I mean, I think there's ways that we can do. What you're doing though is just you need to create the norm for your meetings moving forward. And then Ms. Love, I will. Let me say one more thing, and then I think in the reverse, figuring out, and it depends on the dynamic of the technology and how you see the meeting and the engagements taking place, figuring out how to bring them into that space too. So the host or hostess is your first, and then blend in the audience. So the answer that I had for the 212 was that we had iPads set up at tables. And I mean, it was a little bit like a penny arcade. Like there was a lot of noise and there was a lot of stuff going on. But for them, they were able to basically connect with people at random as the iPads were passed around and engage. And it was silly. It was like the old 1980s Max Headroom. You know, you're walking around with your friend, you know. But guess what? That person was there and they were engaging. And that's what made sense there in that moment. I'm sure there's better ways to accomplish it, but it's blending. How do you blend so that everyone has this? You don't want someone on their phone at that table either. That's the equivalent of turning your camera off. So what other facilitator type expectation clues can you bring into the mix? And yes, Miss Love, I apologize for keeping you waiting.
Oh, no, you're fine. I couldn't see anything where I could raise my hand like in Zoom. I was just going to share what we do with our children's church ministry. Since we're still online with them, we encourage them to keep the cameras on because we have we can do a little virtual spinning the wheel, and they win a prize where their name goes on the wheel to win a $5 gift card if they keep their cameras on during the entire time that we're on. And that was something I was thinking we could probably do. Say we're going to give a giveaway like we would do with the cards when we met in person. You drop your card in the bucket or the bowl and then draw a card at the end. So you could do that to maybe try to keep the cameras on.
Well, and something I know I've done similar to that, instead of it being just a gift, we've given additional FaceTime. So if your camera is on, we're going to actually connect you with the room of other camera ons, or you can private message us for, you know, if you're doing groups of twos for networking. We've also given folks an opportunity to give us like a 15-second pitch that went on that Facebook group. So they got additional FaceTime for their business. So I think it's like every good kindergarten class. It's about dangling the carrot and figuring out what the incentive that may work. But I think the more that you set the norms and hold them to it, the more they know, when I come, I gotta show up and show out. Like I've got to make it happen. That's what these types of meetings are for. All the other ones I can be passive. This is an active meeting.
That makes perfect sense, because now we say, you know, because we are so used to when people walk in the room, we greet everyone, how are you doing? But now people will say, oh, hey, you know, hey, Joe, how you doing? It's still a black square. Doing good. Good to see you. Mute. Like, so, but we will,
you know, and then there's always
working.
there's the I Spy game where you've got to be able to see something in their background. I mean, there's all sorts of different, takes me back to my Radio Disney roots. You know, all of the different things that, you know, you can encourage, and at some point, someone will understand what you're doing, or they will choose to just not to. And again, we're all grown adults, so we have to, you know, take what we can. I'm excited to see how the blend happens, because it's one of those funny things where, like, if we left a meeting, none of us would actually do this on our way out, you know. It's like, what can you do to make the in-person a little silly to make everyone feel good? You know, there's some dynamic, creative ways that I think you can start to design your event to have it all complement together. But it's going to be setting norms and setting expectations.
And like right now, we're coming back in person. Normally we have food that we set out, and we just are not comfortable doing that yet for a variety of reasons. So we sent people that RSVP to the meetings, the committee meetings, Panera gift cards. Well, then we start thinking about it. Well, just because someone's attending virtually, they should still be able to go get breakfast. And then, so we're trying to find ways to keep everybody, you know, together. And I was wondering probably if maybe we could send out like a box, you know, to everyone, because at some point everyone's going to attend virtually, just saying, hey, this is what we're doing, you know, just some, you know, here's how the meetings will be run, here's how it can work for you, with some like fun little tchotchkes or whatever to get people excited.
Absolutely. I think anytime that you can do a pre-event moment, whatever that means, whether it is an email with a ton of digital things that they would just, you know, download, or if it's something physical and tangible that they can hold and promote, you know, tell them how to brag about the stuff and that the tickets are still, you know, registration is still open. I think you can be very strategic in the marketing and promotions piece of it. And then again, know your audience and think about the experience. You know, if we are going to ask of them, how much pre-work are you going to do to get them prepped to be prepared for that? If it's more of a pass by moment, maybe it's just an email, like, again, I think it's strategically thinking about how to prep your audience and create the experience. It's all about the experience. I mean, we're talking prior to press and record about my time at Disney and knowing what I wanted of that experience. And this time in March didn't really hit. They're not thinking about the experience. They're thinking about maybe bottom line or low staff or all this other stuff. Those that are going to elevate with whatever they have available to them are going to be the ones that we're going to gravitate to, because we're making decisions based on experience.
Yes.
That's 100% what we care about right now. There are people resigning from jobs because of the experience. So, you need to think first about that. And then, of course, goals and missions of the event in mind. But how are you presenting it? How are you making it easy for them to participate, interact, engage, and grab the value that you're offering?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. This is so much fun. Thank you for letting me talk about things I get really excited about.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about, Amy, based on what you were saying, is to encourage, is maybe if we could get the chairman of each of our committees, including our board, to do a little recording saying, don't forget our August meeting. Look forward to seeing everybody there. We'll be doing a hybrid. And then send that out with the agenda and the minutes. I mean, maybe that would get a little more interesting. So. Yeah,
there are, obviously any of the email systems or CRMs that are used do have opportunities to insert video. There are also very, very cost-effective systems like Vidyard is a great one. Bonjoro is another, where you can do in-moment video and it'll set you up neat and pretty to send that out direct. It may be, again, depending upon the level of event, the attendance, the time, and all that good stuff. So this is a maybe sending a thank you that says their name that they registered. You take the list from the day of registrations, and you may have even seen these before. Someone has a whiteboard and on it says Ebony, and there's a nice little thing. So you're like, what is she doing with my name? And then on there it's like, Ebony, I'm so glad you registered for our blah, 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 blah. Make sure you do this, this, this. Look out for your mail in a week. And, it'll start to become something that you do. And it matters. It's going to be those types of experience-based efforts that are truly going to be remembered.
Okay.
And it's all work. And I know that's hard. And sometimes it's just one more thing. But I think that you can create efficiencies around these thoughts. And when you see the reaction and the results from it, hopefully it will encourage you to incorporate that into your strategy and your efforts.
Good.
Wonderful.
Anybody else? This has been a good discussion. I've learned a lot myself. And I'll obviously be learning every day as we go forward in the new hybrid scenario.
I think that's part of the joy is that we all learn from each other, and I think borrowing great ideas is a wonderful thing in this space. So the more that you can also share amongst each other as to what works or what impressed you, nobody needs to be mega unique. It's what will work. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and share my passion for event experience. Thank you. Thank you.